What's up, Rangers and overall hockey fans? Thank you guys so much for chiming in for Rangers Review episode 65 now. Myself, Wardy, that's Stat Boy Steven. This will probably be a little bit of a shorter episode today, not a typical podcast episode, as we have breaking news that came out yesterday at the time of being live here on YouTube, and of course, wherever you're listening to this afterwards, where you get your audio podcast, that yes, Nils Lundkvist, Rangers, one of their top prospects, has been traded to the Dallas Stars. So Steve and I will be sharing our raw reactions and who exactly won this trade, even though I think we have a good idea as of now why Chris Drury was able to make this deal happen for the return that it was, that we'll get into shortly. And then we'll advance with some prospect updates that Steven loves to share, and then wrap things up with a quick preseason preview in which Steven and I will both be in attendance for one or multiple games of the preseason for the New York Rangers starting next week at the time of being live here. But plenty to get into, Steven. Before we hear your raw reaction about this trade, what were the details exactly? I would first like to share that at this juncture, Steven, we talk about Lee Sanderson. We talk about Vitaly Kravtsov. We talk about Nils Lundkvist. Vitaly's still on the team. We'll see. Again, he's going to be that guy that's a big question mark. How does he perform in preseason? Is he going to stay in this top six? Because right now he's lined up to be our third line right winger. I think at this juncture, Steven, it's safe to say that by all means, get closer prospects, but maybe get closer prospects that you don't like. I think that's what we have to do at this point, Steven, because you just keep taking over. I mean, how's it feel to be the uncle of all these players that naturally have no long-standing tenure in the Rangers organization? Let me hear it.
I don't know. I mean, Shevchuk doing fine. It's not. It's
That's
not all
true.
bad.
That's true. I'll give you that. And we got Othman. I know he's not going anywhere. So
Not yet. Not yet.
yeah, knock on wood. Seriously. I feel like I need to bless the house to make sure nothing happens. But yeah, so in your one, I guess I should ask you first, how does this feel as someone that, again, same way that you did with Elias and other players overseas, you built these relationships, you've gone to other families, things of that nature. How does this feel for you personally, not only as a fan, but someone that, again, has built a rather nice bond with Nils during his young time in the Rangers organization to now see him a part of the Dallas Stars?
Honestly, I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate that it didn't work out. Yeah, but he moves on, so we move on. It's that simple.
It is that simple, yeah. So, I mean, do you think you'll have any relationship with him going forward, or do you think this is where things are cut off?
Um, I mean, I might run into him once or twice down the line, but you know, um, I will not follow as extensively as I used to. I mean, of course, and look, I'm not saying that people shouldn't. I mean, if they feel a connection to a player and that player leaves the Rangers and they feel like they still want to follow that player, sure. I mean, do whatever you want. It's everyone's free to do whatever they desire in their fandom. Um, it's not that I will completely stop following. I mean, I'll check up on him once in a while to see how he's doing. But first and foremost, I'm a Rangers fan, and I follow these prospects because they're Ranger prospects. So, yeah, I hope he does well in Dallas. I think it's a really good fit for him. Um, and honestly, you asked earlier who won the trade. I would say Nils Lundkvist won the trade.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. It's crazy because when you look at this deal in the buildup, and I know that you referenced, I believe, earlier today or yesterday, a article that came out about Niels and the trade overall. And Niels is not someone that I have ill will with. It's unfortunate that, again, the Rangers were in this stereotypical situation where they had another top prospect that just did not pan out here, wouldn't show up to camp until he was traded. And that held true. But it was nice to see at least Neil say that, he believes that the Rangers are a great organization. He was just coming in at the wrong time. And he's not wrong for saying that because, again, when you look at the Rangers out the right side of D, even at left, Zach Jones is expected to start the year with the Rangers on that third pair. There just isn't room for him unless he truly balls out. And even then, who knows? Because we've seen guys in your past maybe perform pretty well, or at least substantial enough where you could warrant them being in the lineup. I mean, I was a fan of Nils being in the lineup over the Chinortis of the world, among others, and it didn't happen given the Rangers' defensive core group last year. However, even with things being different this year, you could tell that, again, this was not an ill will thing. Nils just wanted to be given the right opportunity and have the right, again, chance to get a payday bigger than I know that what he would be getting, say, this year if he was buried in the AHL, and then before you know it, his contract will be up. So let's get into this trade a little bit, though, because yes, Nils won in the sense that he got a trade to a team that he will have a chance to automatically be in their top 9 of defense. Pardon me, not top 9. I can't do math. Top 6. And even have potential to move up into their top 4 midseason. I don't think it would be outlandish if Nils gets to play up. Maybe we'll see him get some time with Esa Lindell on that second pair. But for the Rangers, Chris Drury came into this one where the Rangers didn't have much leverage here, and yet they managed to pull off a 2023 first round pick. It is top 10 protected, but this is easily one of the deepest drafts we've seen in a while. So this is a big deal in itself. And I do know that if that pick, for whatever reason, gets in the top 10, then that pick should be unprotected and moving to 2024. And if I'm not mistaken, Steven, there is a conditional 4th round pick now.
Yeah. So about the first round pick, first, it's top 10 protected, which doesn't necessarily mean that if it's a top 10 pick, they keep it.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that if it's a top 10 pick, they get to decide what to do with it. If that pick ends up to be 10th overall, and they, let's say halfway through the season, Pavelski has a career-ending injury, Miro Heiskanen wants out or whatever, so something happens to like their top players, and they see at the end of the season, well, let's give them the 10th overall pick now because next year might even be worse. Let's go into a rebuild. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just painting a scenario. Then technically they can say, well, okay, New York can have our first round pick now. But it is a guaranteed first round pick. And I think that's the big difference with a trade like when we acquired Andrew Copp, where it was a conditional first.
Yeah.
It starts out as a second. Despite the condition, it's a guaranteed first. So it's either a first next year or in 2024. And that 4th round pick, it's a 4th round pick in 2024, I think.
Okay.
And it can turn into a 3rd round pick in 2025 if Nils Lundkvist accumulates 55 points over the next 2 seasons with the Dallas Stars.
Gotcha. Which again, very well could happen if he gets a decent amount of time.
I mean, it's not out of the question. It's not out of the question.
Especially with Klingberg being gone now too. I mean, he's going to have an opportunity to fill those shoes to an extent. And again, that's why this matchup, again, Nils is someone who I'm not going to go on my way to root for the guy, but he's still someone that, again, I don't have an ill will with. I was a heavy supporter of his, as were you, to different degrees, because, again, you're literally his uncle. But I was a fan of his, obviously, as he was building up the ranks as a top prospect for the Rangers. But I got to say, talk about a tip of the cap for Chris Drury. I know circumstances were different. I think you referenced this yesterday on Twitter, but the Rangers managed to get a bigger return out of Nils than what they did with Pavel Buchnevich. So it just shows you more and more that Chris Drury has quickly developed into, in my opinion, easily one of the best GMs in the game of the AHL in only a year's span. I mean, from what he did at last year's trade deadline to now, again, partying with the quote-unquote disgruntled prospect, just a prospect that knew he wasn't going to fit here, that wanted to go elsewhere. That's a deal where, I mean, even if the Rangers got like a 2nd and a 3rd, I felt would have been more feasible. They got a 1st, Steven, in this type of year's draft.
I know.
Just imagine if that becomes, say, the 11th pick. I mean, or in that top 15. Like, this is a draft where the Rangers are going to have an interesting situation now where talk about a potential pick they can part with. That is there. I have this vision for the Rangers awfully similar to last year, where they will be a very good team throughout the year. However, they will take that next step in fixing their holes by the deadline. And I do think it's going to be very deja vu in that sense. But now that you build this pick, you now have the luxury to potentially go after and seek a bigger time player by the deadline. That's, say, a rental or a guy that's maybe on 2 years left of his deal, whatever it may be. But even if the Rangers don't do that, you can't blame them because of how deep this draft is going to be. So I think that's really the biggest win here for Chris Drury and the Rangers. It's not any 1st round pick. This draft is highly coveted. This is a big deal heading into 2023. So when you saw the Rangers originally get that 1st round pick, I mean, what was your raw reaction? Were you blown away? Like, did you expect the Rangers to get one, this return, and two, for this trade to happen as soon as it did? Because I gotta say, I didn't expect it to happen this soon. Normally, when we see these rumors, there's quite a buildup, and a lot of times nothing happens. There could have been a realization where Nils didn't even play in North America this year, and then they reassessed it come the offseason next
I
year.
think I
Go.
think realistically, this is probably one of the rare cases where it's a win-win trade
Mm-hmm.
because the Rangers got more for Lundkvist than you expected at first because we're talking about a player that requested a trade, and we've seen in the past that that might hurt the value of a young player a little bit. So to still get a first and a fourth, I think is great value. And look at it for the Dallas Stars, right? They lose John Klingberg in free agency, and now they go out and give up a lottery protected first round pick and a mid round pick for a player that they feel can step in right away. I think he's the second best right handed defenseman for them behind Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah.
He's going to have to battle it out with Colin Miller and Yanni Hakanpää for that second pair right spot. I think he can, it's probably his to lose. And it's not that Lundkvist wasn't good enough for the Rangers. It's just that Fox and Trouba aren't going anywhere. And this coaching staff seems to prefer a different type of player on the third pair. It's not so much that Braden Schneider is better. It's just that Braden Schneider is a better fit for the way this team wants to play.
I think it's both. Personally, I do think at this juncture, there's no denying that Braden's the better player. Now, granted, I know that you can make the counter that O'Neill's wasn't given as much of an opportunity as Braden, but give credit where credit's due. Braden played his way. It still blows my mind that, again, Braden was the one defenseman of
Mhm.
him, Niels, and Jones that we really weren't talking about heading into last year. And then he burst on the scene. When he was drafted, and John Davidson loved that pick. That was like a heavy favorite of his. That was one of the many good moves the previous Rangers regime was able to do in this rebuild. I always had that feeling that he was going to be someone that would hit the NHL sooner than expected. And that was full-fledged. I mean, what Braden did down the stretch last year for the Rangers and in the playoffs, he is the right fit for this team, 1,000%. And to have him balance now with, again, a smaller defenseman assumed on his left side in Zach Jones, naturally that just looks like there's more potential long-term success than giving the keys to potentially Niels in the scenario where they didn't have Schneider. And then you might have more of those hiccups that you had early last year when the Rangers were trying to balance things and figure out their bottom pair of defense.
Yeah, and we often talk about the value of a player to the team versus the value of a player on the trade market. For years, Jesper Fast had more value to the Rangers on the team than he would have in a trade. And I think Braden Schneider is a similar player in that regard, where the Rangers get more out of him by playing him than they would get trading him away. And with Lundkvist, it's the other way around. Lundkvist wasn't fitting in their plans, but Lundkvist with a higher ceiling. If Lundkvist and Schneider traded at the same time, I think I'm not sure Schneider returns a first round pick and a fourth round pick. To be honest, he'll return a nice package, but the 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 potential for Schneider isn't as high as it is with Nils Lundkvist. It's also the pedigree of how he played in Sweden, and the fact that before training camp even starts, before the main training camp even starts, Drury manages to get a first and a fourth. That shows you what the value was to other teams for Nils Lundkvist. So it's a trade that works out for all parties involved. But long term for the Rangers, there is no scenario where this trade makes them look good. And what I mean by that is there are basically two outcomes here for Lundkvist. Either he turns into a a borderline top pair defenseman behind Heiskanen, like Ekholm is in Nashville, where he puts up 40, 45 points. He's managing the power play, and he becomes like one of the more underrated defensemen in the league. In that case, people might say, well, the Rangers gave up on a player too soon. Whereas if he doesn't develop into the player that people expect him to be, then there will be people who say, well, because the Rangers didn't develop him right the first year he came over from Sweden. So there's no scenario here where the Rangers are not going to look a little bit bad in terms of how this
from
trade will
from
be
from from a
perceived.
media perspective,
Yeah,
mostly.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
I tend to agree with that. But the beauty about this too is that this was a win-win. So the Rangers are going to have two options now, as I alluded to already. They're either going to keep this pick and potentially draft a kid. I'd say, mid first round in 2023.
Okay.
That very well can have higher upside than what Neil's ever had or will ever have in his career. Or
Yeah.
two, you trade this pick and you make yourself that much more of a potential juggernaut as you enter playoffs. So that's why, from a media perspective, it might seem like a loss, but we're focused on the now. We're
Yeah.
out of the rebuild. We're focused on not only developing the guys we currently have on this team more than anything else, but again, making that playoff push. The Rangers,
True,
the
but
expectations are different now than what they were
yeah,
last
but
year.
are the Rangers already a team that should be trading away their first round picks every year to win a
No,
cup?
no. But I think it's important to realize that when you're able to have a trade like this happen, and should a really, really good player that perfectly fits into this team, whether it's short term or long term, because again, the Rangers are tight on cap, and that's going to have a substantial impact on playoff time, then you do it, because it's not like it's the Rangers' only first round pick they have. I think
Mhm.
we have a different argument per se if the Rangers only have their one first this year.
Yeah.
And maybe the Rangers come the trade deadline, maybe they do trade a first, but maybe it's only their first round pick. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Do they even have a first this year or no?
They do, and
Okay.
that's
All
the
right.
scenario that you could be looking at. And
Yeah.
this could be a trade at the deadline that also has its own condition, where you go, if like if it's going to be a first round pick, but it's going to be the lower of the two first round picks if the Rangers don't make it to the Stanley Cup final. And if the Rangers do make it to the Stanley Cup final, it'd be the higher of the two first round picks. That's the kind of condition you can put in there. So it gives the Rangers ammunition. The Rangers right now going into next year's draft have their own first round pick, the Dallas Stars first round pick, their own second round pick, and then a Colorado Avalanche third round pick, which they got for Alexander Georgiev. And then I don't think they don't have any picks in the fourth and the fifth round. And then there's two in the sixth and their own in the seventh. They got the Winnipeg pick in the sixth round pick from the Andrew Copp trade. So they have ammunition to make something happen at the deadline. Yes. So we'll see what happens. But what's interesting here is that I think Nils Lundkvist as a player is worth more than a first and a fourth round pick. But considering the situation,
Yeah, the circumstances made it difficult.
the circumstances lowered the value the perceived value for us at least.
Yeah.
So the Rangers got more than I expected, but for Dallas, it's still a really good return as well.
Yeah. And I love the fact too that he went to a team that, like, I personally don't mind either. I got no ill will with the Dallas Stars.
Mm-hmm.
If he goes on and has success, then great. I see some people in the live chat right now are talking about, is this Zubov over again? I wouldn't go there, just because again, Zubov was in the prime of his career when the Rangers parted with him. We're talking about Niels as yet to prove himself at the NHL level. But
Zubov was already playing at a Hall of Fame level when the Rangers traded him away.
That was a deal that never should have happened. This is one where even if Niels goes on to have a career that he hopes for, again, let's say he tops out as a top line or top two line defenseman, and he's a power play specialist, kind of similar to Tony D in that aspect, just without the attitude issues. It's still something where the Rangers can come away and be beyond comfortable with, knowing what, again, their hands were kind of tied because Niels wouldn't play here, one, for right now at least, and two, this type of return, Drury would have been, in my opinion, a madman to pass this up.
Yeah, and I see a lot of Ranger fans complaining about, he's a quitter and a player should not request a trade. But look, this happens. It happens more than people think.
To cut you off, Steven, just for
various reasons.
A lot of trade requests happen year after year that aren't even made public.
Yeah.
So keep in mind, this is the New York Rangers, so
Yeah.
almost anything and everything will be pushed out there by the media.
Exactly. But to name a few players that forced their way off their team to then play for the Rangers for various reasons. Like I'm not comparing Nils Lundkvist to these players, but Kevin Hayes refused to sign with Chicago and signed with us. Jimmy Vesey refused to sign with the Predators and the Sabres and then signed with us. Adam Fox forced his way to New York.
Kind of a big deal. Not gonna lie.
Martin St. Louis is one. Mark Messier. Mark Messier forced his way out of Edmonton to come to New York. So, and like I said, I'm not comparing Nils Lundkvist to these players or comparing Nils Lundkvist's situation to these players, but players often want to do what's best for them, and they should. I mean, rightfully so. These guys play maybe, if they're lucky, 15 years, 10, 15 years. Most NHL careers don't even last 7 years. So they want to make as much money now as they can possibly get out of it. You know, today, 3 defensemen retired: Keith Yandel, PK Subban, and Zdeno Chara.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to mention it.
They made, I think, 66, 68, 78, and 102 million over the course of their careers. But those are the outliers. That's not the average salary that a player makes over the course of their career.
Shout out to Keith. I will always love Yandel, no matter what. Yep.
But look, Nils Lundkvist didn't have a chance, and it's not because he's not good enough. It's because Gallant was looking for something else. Gallant was looking for a different type of player on his third pair. And Gallant is also a coach that is not comfortable playing a defenseman on the other side of the pair. So what was there to do for Nils Lundkvist? And over the last 12 months, I've actually talked about trading a defenseman to the Dallas Stars because it's such a good fit. I always thought it was going to be Jacob Trouba, though.
Yeah, I mean,
I always thought Jacob Trouba was the perfect candidate for Dallas to replace John Klingberg, for him to waive his no-move clause because there's no state income tax. Dallas is a really it's a nice city to live. You know, it's a big city, so his wife could get a job there. It was a really good fit on multiple levels.
And it ends up being Nils.
we still end up trading a right-handed defenseman to the Dallas Stars in exchange for a first-round pick. So
we should have thrown Libor in there just for the hell of it. But again, that's a discussion for another day.
Libor Hayek should be put on waivers, and then we'll see that he clears waivers, and then we can just put this whole thing to rest.
Yes.
31 teams will say no to him. But yeah, Nils Lundkvist on to the Dallas Stars. Good luck to him.
Yeah, good luck to him indeed. Any final takeaways about this deal and what it means for the Rangers going forward?
I think it's nice for the Rangers to get a first-round pick because that will turn into a player, assuming that we use it to pick a player. That player will be ready at a later stage where the Rangers sort of, you know, like they stack the prospects, like they spread them out over the years to make sure they're they don't all peak at the same time. You know, it's like it keeps on rolling. And yeah, I'm happy with the trade. I'm happy with what we got for Nils Lundkvist, and I think Dallas Stars fans are gonna love him. And I don't know. And I saw the comment there. Is he going to be the next John Klingberg or the next Julius Honka? I mean, who knows? Who knows?
The Honka. That's talking about taking back to memory lane because I remember his whole situation.
Interesting thing though, when Nils Lundkvist signed with the Rangers, his Swedish team Luleå signed Julius Honka to be his replacement.
I think we talked about that. I'm almost certain I remember that happening. Yeah. So in conclusion, the Nils trade, a win-win for both sides. Very happy as a Rangers fan to get the type of return that they did. And now they can focus, all steam ahead for this upcoming season, which again is all aligned to be another big year for the Rangers. And year 2 of being a win now team. Again, big thing for the Rangers now as we get into, preseason preview, Steven. As we know, both of us are destined to be in attendance for this Monday's game at MSG, Rangers versus Islanders. First preseason. That's first preseason game of the year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's going to be an awesome matchup. This should, again, God willing, I'll be able to go because everything, I'm like 90% certain I'm going right now. This will be the first time I'll be at Madison Square Garden since the season opener in 2019. Jacob Trouba's debut. Mark Stahl scored a wraparound goal. I mean, it's been a while. It's been a while.
Elias Anderson's biggest trip of the year.
Yeah, I was there again. His biggest highlight as a Ranger. Unfortunately, I've been there for it all. So it's gonna be really
That was
nice.
against Winnipeg, right?
Yeah, that was against Winnipeg. Correct. Yep.
Trouba making his Rangers debut against his old team.
Yeah. That was fitting. It's going to be very exciting to see how that preseason game goes. I'm sure the Garden's going to be a lot of fun. Again, haven't been there in years. So to anyone that's attending, look out for me, the short schmuck. I'll be wearing one of my Ranger jerseys, I'm sure. Look out for Steven wearing one jersey that I can almost guarantee no one else will be wearing in MSG. So I don't think it'll be too hard to find us there. But when we look at the Rangers preseason overall, before we get into the regular season, this is kind of a segue, a season preview to both now. This is a big year for Capo Caco, Alexis Lafreniere, both guys that are looking to take further steps in their game with more opportunities. Health will play a factor for Caco because he dealt with ailments multiple times this past year, including like a broken wrist. So like he's someone that we really hope to see get on a groove and take that jump now to potentially being, I would say if Kako comes out of this year with 45 points, I think that's a really nice step for him. Even though he wasn't too far off on that pace if he stayed fully healthy. And for Alexis Lafreniere, making sure that he's getting key time on that top line, key time on the power play. I think this is going to be a season where, God willing, we really see these guys start to take further steps in their game. And the biggest guy, though, more than anything, Steven, is Vitaly Kravtsov. He's the one where that's that big question mark. What is this guy going to bring for us? We've been through hell and back with him already, between if he's even going to be on the Rangers or not. I thought he was going to get traded to the Penguins like a year and a half ago. Never happened. So as we fast forward to today and as we look at this preseason, what are you looking for most in Vitaly and his game potentially having a significant role in the Rangers this year in the top 9? And overall on the youngsters that will be involved in, of course, leading the way, Brennan Othman, among others.
Yeah. With Kravtsov, I hope he shows that he can actually carry the puck, because we've seen in preseason games before with him that he can score goals. That I don't need to see that again. He needs to show that he belongs on an NHL team. And he needs to do that by being a playmaker on his line, by making things happen, by carrying the puck into the zone, by creating offense. It'll be interesting to see what the lineup's going to be. Of course, we don't know that yet. We're still 6 days away from that game.
How many guys do you think are going to and this just adds to me asking about Othman and everyone else. What do you think the lineup is going to look like? How many Rangers starters are you think are going to play in game 1, if at all?
I mean, the early preseason games always have more unknown players, like prospects, invitees, Wolfpack players.
Jimmy BC.
The closer you get to the regular season, the more the lineup will resemble what you see on opening night. So that first game on Monday, I do expect a fair few names that for me are interesting, like prospects or guys like Othman, Cooley, Rempe, Sikora, even a guy like McConnell, Barker, or Korzak. They might get a game or two.
Ryder Korzak's the guy I'm looking for. I hope he's playing.
Yeah. My dark horse to actually do something in the preseason is Patrick Kodorenko. I still think this guy has the talent to be more than a minor league player. He is, how old is he now? 23.
You would know. I would not know. You would know between the two of us.
98. He's turning 24, I think, in October.
Okay. Well, I mean, as his uncle, you need to know his birthday, obviously.
He was born on the exact same day as Elias Anderson, October 13th, 1998.
Of course you know. Of course you know that.
Exactly.
You got to have your nephews in line.
No, I like Kodorenko. I liked him in his draft year. I was surprised he went undrafted, but he was dealing with a leg injury. He went to college. He played for the Michigan State Spartans.
Yep.
So yeah, when the Rangers signed him in 2020, I was happy to see that name pop up again. So he's my dark horse. But the obvious guys to look for are Cooley, Othman, Sikora as forwards, and then on defense, Jones and Robertson.
Robertson is Jones. I'm gonna be locked on a lot because again, this is supposed to be hopefully a first full year with him. As long as again he plays to his potential. But Robertson is the one I think I'm probably most intrigued by defensively because we really haven't seen much of him yet. What's he gonna look like this year? That's an interesting one for me. I'm excited to see how Matthew's gonna do.
Yeah, and then the other guys that are out like recent draft picks, like Maxim Barbashev, for instance, is a guy who I think we drafted him in the 5th round this year.
And that's Ivan's younger brother, correct? Yeah.
Yes, he's the younger brother of Ivan Barbashev. He plays in the QMJHL for the Moncton Wildcats. So the Rangers have a QMJHL prospect for the first time since Ryan Graves, I think. Because Lafreniere didn't play in the QMJHL after we drafted him, of course.
Yep.
And there are players that might make some noise, like a guy like Austin Rushev. He's a big guy. Adam Edstrom, who is coming over from Sweden for preseason. He's not eligible for Hartford, so if he doesn't make the team, he'll go back to Sweden. I'm really not that interested in Jimmy Vesey. I'm not even gonna waste time talking about him. The guy's on a PTO. The guy's not an NHL caliber player at this point. Bobby Trevino.
Oh, you know that because you just said that he's gonna be. He's gonna be.
Oh yeah, probably. He's probably gonna get a contract, and he's gonna take minutes away from
Vitaly. How much you want to bet? How much you want to bet he takes it from Vitaly?
A second line of Panarin, Trocheck, Vesey. You started it, man. You started this. I'm just finishing it.
Because it's true. Correct me if I'm wrong.
But yeah, Bobby Trevino is going to be an interesting forward to keep an eye on.
Gustav Riedel.
Gustav Riedel from Sweden. He potentially could make the team. And then, of course, the new guys that are expected to make the team. A guy like Ryan Carpenter, for instance.
Yep.
And who's the other one I was just thinking of?
Oh, you know what we didn't even mention?
What?
Tyler Mott signing with the Senators.
Yeah, but it's only a 1-year deal, so he's primed to come back at the deadline for a 5th round pick.
One can hope. Ottawa's going to be good this year. I don't trust their defense or their goaltending enough to have them be a playoff team, but I think they're going to be pesky like what Detroit was last year. What Detroit now expected to take another level. Yeah, I mean, could you imagine if the Rangers get Mott back at the deadline? That would be pretty amazing. And
I wouldn't
even actually lock the guy up this time.
I wouldn't even be surprised if they get Justin Brown back at the deadline too. I mean, he was good for the Rangers. That's the depth.
I just hope the Rangers defense plays competent enough, including Zach Jones.
Going into the playoffs, who would you rather have as your 7th defenseman? Justin Brown or Lieber Hayek? Come on.
Oh, I mean, it's night and day.
Yeah.
But didn't Braun go back to Philly?
Yeah, 1-year deal.
He's coming back.
The other interesting thing I noticed is that Julien Gauthier. Fuck his name. Damn. Julien Gauthier went back from number 15 to number 12 now that Patrick Nemeth is gone. And Gustav Riedel picked up number 15. Now, Riedel is an interesting story. The 27-year-old center from Sweden, they signed him to a 1-year, one-way deal, but he is waiver exempt. So he's making an NHL salary even if he goes back to Hartford. So they basically guarantee him being in North America all season long. So they get an extended look at him and see if he can maybe make the team down the line if he doesn't on opening night. And then the other defenseman that I'm interested to see what's going to happen is Ty Emberson. Now, I'm not expecting him to be like a star in the NHL, but, it's still a talented guy. Played with Keandre Miller in college for Wisconsin. So there's a connection there. So we'll see what happens. Luca Hainaut, another defenseman that the Rangers signed, was a teammate of Will Cooley in juniors with the Windsor Spitfires. So there's connections like all over the team. And Brandon Scanlon, the last defenseman I'll mention here, number 58 on this roster. He was one of the, I think he was like a top 5 target among undrafted free agents in college last season.
Okay.
So interesting to see if he. I expect him to be in Hartford, but it's nice to see if Robertson and Jones make the team, that we have some new blood in Hartford to maybe develop into something.
You
But yeah,
know,
exciting times.
what's crazy, and this is a player who apparently has had, as we know earlier in his career, has had some attitude issues, I think is the best way to say it. Not on the level as like blatant as we've seen with Tony, but Sonny Milano only manages to get a PTO with the Flames when he is one of the better passers among forwards in all the NHL. If you look at his advanced numbers, he had a really good season last year, 34 points in 66 games. Man, I would have loved if the Rangers took him on a PTO over Jimmy Vesey. I
I
mean,
would have. There are a couple of
man.
players actually that signed PTOs that I would have preferred over Jimmy Vesey. Zach Aston Reese is another one.
Yeah, I mean, he just has the experience from Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't go wrong. But Milano's my guy. He's from New York. I think he grew up an Islanders fan, but again, no one's perfect. He's from Massapequa, New York,
yeah.
where my mom gets her literally Massapequa, New York. Fun fact is like the only place where my mom gets potato salad. She loves potato salad, but she can only get it from New York, and she only gets it from like one specific deli in Massapequa. So it needs to be those two things. So whenever I'm in the area, I have to go get it for her. Maybe Sonny's been there. But yeah, he's one of those players that I've always wanted the Rangers to land at some point. So when I saw the Rangers get Jimmy, and then I didn't even think Milano was only going to be getting a PTO. That's the biggest shock to me. That's why I'm alluding to maybe the attitude thing, locker room presence. Is that a factor? If so, how much? That led him to not even gain a guaranteed contract. It's pretty absurd in my opinion.
I think Jimmy Vesey got the PTO more as like a gesture to a former player than anything else.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
But yeah, we'll see what happens. We have two players on a PTO. Matt Bartkowski is another one.
Yes.
The defenseman, former Bruin and Wild defenseman. Played for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, I think, last season in the AHL.
Okay.
Not high expectations, but yeah, we'll see. But when it comes to prospects, I would say Cooley, Othman, Sikora, Jones, Robertson, and then Dylan Garand in goal.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't forget Garand because he should get a decent amount of playing time. So he's going to be this year in Hartford, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. Speaking of goaltending too, just not to get, I'm always getting off topic, but I was going through the presumed NHL lines late last night. I'm just seeing how every team's shaping up right now. And it's crazy how you look at the Avalanche, who just signed, McKinnon to a 9-year deal. Great for them. Their goaltending.
I love how petty McKinnon was in negotiations. I can totally see it.
Yeah.
Like 12.5, and he goes, "No, I want 12.6. I want more than McDavid."
As he should. I mean, seriously. I mean, after winning the cup, McKinnon's literally one of the best players in the world. I don't want to hear any debates. And I think it's just a matter of how much does that hurt the depth for Colorado going forward, because they are not nearly as deep as what they were last year now. They're banking on the new hooks, among others, to really take another step. But what I was alluding to is their goaltending. It's Pavel Francouz and Alexander Georgiev. So Georgie is going to have a great opportunity to try to secure that number one starting spot between the two.
Yeah, look, the more I look at the NHL, the more I realize that outside of like 5 or 6 teams, goaltending just sucks.
And our backup's really solid too. I love Halak. I think he's the perfect backup for this Rangers team. I really do.
The Maple Leafs going into a season with Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov. The Devils are a young up and coming team. They can actually make the playoffs. Unless you look at their goaltending, which is Vitek Vanacek and Mackenzie Blackwood.
Speaking of the Devils, a guy that I wonder if he's going to break out and make the roster this year or no is the Swede. Why am I blanking?
Alexander Holtz.
Yes, Alexander Holtz. He's that nasty sniper. It was him and Raymond, like those were the ones back in that draft. Raymond's made an immediate impact. Love him to death already. Detroit's, Stevie Y's doing everything right. Devils aren't far off, but yeah, Alexander Holtz is a guy that I have a feeling is going to be a thorn in the Rangers' side for years to
By the
come.
way, for people that are playing fantasy hockey, if you were in a league with like 14 teams or more, Nils Lundkvist would be an interesting sleeper pick for your defense.
That's a good point. It's actually a very good point because he's expected to get a good amount of playing time from the jump. Yeah. Look at you, Steven, with the fantasy picks. I like that. Are you in any fantasy leagues or no?
I run a fantasy league. Yeah. It's
did you draft already or no?
Yeah, we did. We did.
Okay. We need to take a step away. I need to hear what your team is.
I had the 6th overall pick, and someone drafted Mika Zibanejad in the top 5, which meant Leon Draisaitl dropped to 6th.
Oh, woo! There you go.
So, but no, it's a fun league with friends. It's not too serious, It's just for shits and giggles. But so it's a 16-team league. I have Leon Draisaitl, Johnny Gaudreau, Jonathan Huberdeau, Sebastian Aho. Those are basically my most interesting forwards. Robert Thomas and Mark Stone.
Oh, there you go.
And then defense, I have Heiskanen, Fox, Theodore, Taves. And what I always
you got Taves. That's a great one. He's so underrated.
What I always do at the end of the draft, like the last 3-4 rounds, I always, take a bit of a gamble with rookies. So I got Matty Beniers, Owen Power, and where's the other one? Matty Beniers, Owen Power, and Jake Sanderson with my last 3 picks. So a bit of a gamble with the rookies to see if it works.
I like that though. You picked all the rookies that are expected to get like elite playing time. So
in 2019, with the 22nd and 23rd round pick, I got Kel McCarr and Quinn Hughes, so that worked out well.
What's your goaltending?
My goaltending is Matt Murray and Matt Murray is Toronto Maple Leafs, so he's gonna get wins.
Sure.
Who's my other? I think I went with Vanacek because I think Vanacek is gonna get like a decent amount of wins for New Jersey. I think New Jersey is gonna barely make the playoffs.
So for fantasy, when it comes to goaltending, is wins most important?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Because I was gonna say you literally just critiqued the Leafs and the Devils. And
but fantasy hockey is different than actual hockey.
No, I know. I haven't played in a fantasy league for hockey in years, so I forgot what was the most important for yours. Okay, that makes more sense then.
Yeah.
I mean, people could even take a gamble again on Georgiev or Francouz, depending on, again, who's going to get more playing time, because Colorado's 100% still going to be a good team this year.
You're better off getting a goalie that plays 60 games for a mediocre team than a goalie that plays on a contender where they split it 50-50.
Did Igor go high in your draft?
I think with the points we have, I think it was a first rounder in our league. Yeah. Vasilevsky and Shesterkin were first rounders in our league.
Okay. Very nice. So before we wrap up today's episode, Steven, quick prospect update. It's funny. The Rangers, the rookie Rangers, the little Rangers were just in Allentown, PA, playing in Phantoms Arena. That's 5 minutes away from me. And of course, I was out of town. I wasn't here the one time when they're here because my dad had talked about it for a while. We want to go, and then they were out of town. My parents were out of state, and I was out of town too separately. I didn't even realize that they were playing 2 games. I was like, son of a bitch. I really wish I was there because Offman played in that. Zach Jones was the captain for the Rangers among the rookies. So what were your takeaways from that overall? How did the kids look in your opinion?
Well, look, I'm going to go on a quick rant here before we talk about the performance of the players.
Okay.
Because the first game wasn't televised at all.
Oh, we say this every year. This is another year talking about the same bullshit.
The Flyers being the home team, the Friday game, that's on them. But then the Saturday game was streamed on NBC Sports Philadelphia Plus.
Yeah, and that's blacked out for me if I don't have like an online package with them.
Well, it's blacked out
Every
for most
Philly game is
people.
blacked out for me unless
It's
I
blacked out.
like go
It's
out of my
blacked
way.
out for most people because you have to log on with like your cable provider's details on
Yes.
whatever.
Yep.
What annoys me is that the Rangers didn't even bother broadcasting the game like on YouTube or on NHL
Yeah, that's poor
video.
PR on their part. Why
Other
would they do
teams,
that?
look, other teams, there were games that were being streamed and saved on YouTube. You could actually go watch it the next day. So we're talking about prospect game. You know, there's no copyright, there's no licensing. It's a prospect game. Who cares? So it was really difficult to figure out how the players were doing, but you know there were a couple of people that were at the game who were giving me regular updates. And from what I was told, the top line for the Rangers with Sikora, Kodorenko, and Othman was really strong in the first game. It was basically the one line that actually had sustained pressure in the offensive zone. The second game, Cooley played with Sikora and Kodorenko on that top line. And the Rangers were outplayed They lost 5-1. The first game they lost 2-1 in overtime. But it's not about the result. These games are never about the result. Same with Traverse City. The Traverse City games in the past were never about the result. It's about what can a player do. Bobby Trevino was one of the standouts, but again, he's 23, so he's expected to be one of the standouts in those games. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to Monday because I can watch the Rangers play at Madison Square Garden, and the numbers will be weird on the back of the jerseys because you know there will be Kodorenko with number 82, and there will be Bryce McConnell Barker with 47, and you know Will Cooley with number 50. But it's going to be fun. Still going to be Rangers hockey. It's going to be the Rangers' future that's on the ice that day. So yeah, looking forward to that. They play the Islanders first. Then the following day, Tuesday, they play in Boston. So they do back to back. I think they do 2 sets of back to backs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The Thursday they play the Devils at home, and then Friday they play the Devils in New Jersey. And then the following week they play the Bruins at home. I think that's Wednesday. And then the Islanders, but that's after I leave. So I'm missing the Islanders game at UBS Arena, but that's fine.
Okay.
So I'm going to 4 games in total. I'm going to the 3 home games and the 1 game in New Jersey.
Awesome. Okay. And what date is the game in Jersey again? Do you know?
It's Friday the 30th.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, this is gonna be fun. Yeah, I'm really excited for Monday's game. I'm figuring out if I'm gonna drive into the city and just see how hectic that's gonna be. I'll talk air off with you about that more.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that it's gonna be a lot of fun. So guys, I think we hit the nail on the head for everything you need to know from episode 65 of Rangers Review.
Do we have any questions before we wrap it up? Or
oh, that's a good point. Yeah, we'll do like 5 minutes of questions if you guys got it here in the live show. For people watching audio, we apologize that we're not able to take questions for obvious reasons. But yeah, we'll take a couple questions before we wrap up the show. While we see if we get any questions here in the live chat, Steven, do the Rangers have a history of number 65?
No one has ever played with 65 in official games, but a player has once been a healthy scratch with number 65.
Was he notable?
Not really.
Born
in Germany.
Oh, that's all you need to say, Stephen. Who is the schmuck? No clue. No
Danny O'Regan.
Oh, I actually know who Danny O'Regan is. Oh shit, yeah, I remember the Rangers got him from Buffalo, I believe, and then he was with the Wolfpack for a bit. Where is he now? Is he still playing?
Let me check that actually. So he was born in Berlin. Played for the U.S. under 18 team.
Yeah, I remember
Boston
Danny.
University in college. Then he was with San Jose, Buffalo. Then he spent 1 year with the Rangers. Then he went to the Henderson Silver Knights, the Anaheim Ducks, and this season he's with the San Diego Gulls.
Okay.
He's under contract with the Anaheim Ducks.
Yep.
For one more year.
That's funny. It's funny because I knew the name right away, but as soon as you said Germany, I'm like,
yeah, born in Germany. Like,
yeah.
I don't know this. Well, let's see.
Yeah. I should have thought about it a little bit harder. Shame on me. Let's see what comments we got. Let's take a couple. Core Python, what's up, buddy? How are you? He says, Steven, who is Justin Gauthier? I only heard Justin Huberdeau.
I know. I was thinking when I said Justin Gauthier, I immediately thought, okay, people are going to mention this because Mark is still getting shit because he said Justin Huberdeau once.
How long ago was that?
About 7-8 months ago. I knew it was going to come.
Who will our 5-on-5 be better than? Will our 5-on-5 be better at the start of than at the start of last season? If so, by how much? I think the Rangers 5-on-5 will be better than last year because I do think that Laffy and Kakko with more certainty from the jump, and a healthy Sammy Blais now. Barclay Goodrow in for another year. I think the Rangers will be. I think for them, it's just the matter of where will they be in the division by the time they get to the trade deadline. I know I'm getting ahead of myself here. But yeah, I think 5-on-5, the Rangers were putrid 5-on-5. And Chris Kreider, I'm sorry to break it to you guys, he's not scoring 50 goals again this year. If he does, I will be so happy to be proven wrong. But the Rangers will have to make sure that they're better 5-on-5 because even if the power play is great again, they're not going to be on the same level as they were last year, in my opinion. Maybe not far off, but you're not going to get that same type of goal production that you're getting from Kreids.
Yeah, I think a lot will depend on how Trocheck will change the way Panarin plays. I think the top line will be fine if Lafreniere is on it. And yeah, I think Gallant really needs to work on that with the team, to be a better possession team. If they don't improve 5-on-5, I don't see this team going far. So, and a lot will depend on how Kakko and Lafreniere play.
Yeah, as we've been saying for a little bit now, right? This isn't the first time.
Because last season, Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider, and Fox all had career years. The chances of all four of them repeating that or even improving on that is so small. So you need someone to pick up the pieces. Kreider going from 52 goals to 40 goals in itself is not terrible. But if at the same time Zibanejad goes from 80 plus points to only 70, and Adam Fox goes from a point per game player to like 65 as a defenseman, it's still good, but those are points that someone else has to pick up. Someone else has to make up for that. And Kakko and Lafreniere are going to be instrumental in that. If they take that next step and if they can become 40, 50, maybe even 60-point players, then this team is looking really good going into the playoffs.
Sleepwell says over or under 65 points this year for Vinny Trocheck.
How many points did Trocheck have last season?
40-something. He had 51.
51. Oh, so what? 14 more points by playing with Panarin? I think he can get that.
I think he'll top out 65.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go on the under slightly on the under. But I would, again, not going to complain if Vinny gives us a 70-point season. Not going to hear me gripe about it. Who has a better chance of making the team, Cooley or Othman? Well, this year neither are going to make the team, but between the two, I would say it's Brendan Othman.
I think Othman has a better chance to make it early on because he can play 9 games before they send him down, and that's the only time they can actually play him.
True.
But down the line, Cooley can be called up anytime, whereas Othman can only play for them after his junior season's over.
That's a good point.
So if Othman gets 9 games, or max 9 games at the start of the season, then it's going to be him. If not, then Cooley definitely has a better chance because injuries are going to happen. And it's going to be between him, Gettinger, and Trevino to see who the first call-up is going to be from Hartford, and maybe Brodzinski. So yeah, we'll see. Cooley's going to be in Hartford though. That's exciting. See how he takes that step up from juniors to pro hockey. It's a big step. It's not easy for people for players, you know.
Yeah,
so,
it's going to be very interesting to see how he performs because all Ranger fans are ecstatic over this kid, and how can you not be after what he did this past year in juniors? But you know what, guys? I think that's a perfect time to cut off the show. We want to thank you guys so much for chiming in. This was episode 65 of Rangers Review. That's @Statboy_Steven on Twitter. I am Tyler, Wardy NYM, known for my Mets coverage on YouTube as well. And we will catch you guys hopefully within the next week or so after being in attendance for some Rangers preseason games. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.